I'm making this just to like clear some things up for any scuba diver that's gone through the training and just feels like, should I buy some gear? Should I not? What's the point? And after my instructors tell me, oh, you shouldn't buy gear, just rent it when you're going, and blah 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 blah. We get it. But I've gone through enough training to the point where it's like, okay, I'm going to be diving pretty often, even if it's 1 month in between, to where I feel like I should have my own gear. And if you feel the same way, then this is perfect for you. It really comes down to what you're comfortable with, and the ability to have your own gear really shines in the fact that you know it. You understand it. You know how it fits. You know how it feels. It just works on every level. You know it feels comfortable for you. So you're not hitting new gear every single time you're getting in the water at a new place. For Texas, it's really great, especially for people in the Houston areas, because we got a ton of places that are within an hour or two of each other to go and dive. And for me, since I am in the Houston area, it it really comes down to a no-brainer. I don't want to be renting other people's gear, and I want my own gear to take care of and look after, understand it. And I'm just one of those people that really like the equipment. To start all of this off, the first things you should need, and this goes for even starting off your training, is masks, fins, and snorkels. For snorkels, there are 3 kinds of snorkels, and you have a wet snorkel, you have semi-dry, and you have a dry snorkel. The wet snorkels is basically just a tube that runs straight out of your mouth and gets you air, and you'll have to push out all of that water if you get any in it. That's not a bad one, but it's also super annoying if you get any kind of water in there. You just have to keep blowing it out, keep spitting it out. It doesn't matter. Dry snorkels suck too for scuba diving. They're big, they're clunky, and they kind of sit weird, and they close up if you get pretty much any angle that isn't straight up on them, and they close off at the top, so you can't get any water in there unless you take the mouthpiece out of. What makes them really nice is that all the water that does collect in there, you can just spit it out through the bottom with that has a little gasket on the bottom of it, and it just spits out. Semi-dry, I think, is the most perfect snorkel for starting off scuba diving, because it doesn't have that close-off valve, but it does come with the gasket at the bottom, so it's easy to spit out all the water. And it also has a little cage at the top of the tube to where it closes off, especially if you're in high waves or any sort of rough water, so it doesn't spit up and hit that or get that in there at all. But I really think anybody that's starting off with that, if they really need to pick a good snorkel, they should go with a semi-dry snorkel. When it comes to masks are one of the most difficult things to find that's right for you. I've been through 3 masks in the past 2 years. The first one I bought off of Amazon because I was stupid, and I didn't think, oh, it doesn't matter, I shouldn't try it on at the dive shop. It really doesn't matter because it all fits the same. It does. It does matter a lot. I couldn't clear my ears by pinching my nose because the nose guard was way too far out and the skirt was just not sitting right. I was getting leakage through my eyes, and it was just a terrible experience to where I had to borrow one from the instructor. And it really comes down to, you need to go to a dive shop and get one fitted to you. The best way to do this is put it on, don't put the strap on, suck in and see if it fits, and you shake your head a little bit, and if it stays on your face, that means it's sealed. It's sealed really well. The next thing you should be checking is if you can clear your ears by pinching your nose. If you can't pinch your nose, you got to do a different one. It's not going to get any better if it gets in the water. You just won't be able to pinch your nose and clear your ears, and that just ruins the whole dive. And then the third thing is price. price shouldn't be a huge concern when it comes to masks. That's one of the first things you buy, and if you want to buy a quality mask, you could expect to drop quite a bit of money on it. However, there are a lot of brands like XS Scuba that does produce pretty quality masks. That's actually the one I'm running now, and I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And it comes at a really good price point. XS Scuba makes really good products for really cheap too. Well, cheap in the scuba diving realm, not cheap in regular people's terms. But buying a quality mask that fits you should, and with at a good price, the price should be your third concern out of all of it. Your fourth concern should be the color. You want one that looks good. You want one that matches your gear. Masks come in so many different shapes, so many different colors, and so many different styles, and you should get what you want with that. That's more of your, like, you pass those 3 check marks. Okay, what color do I want next? That's really what it comes down to. I usually opt just to get a black mask because black matches with everything and it's super cool when you're underwater, but don't listen to me. Third thing is fins. Fins they're difficult to know where they sit until you don't really know how well they work until you get into the water. And that can be very difficult for a lot of people, especially for scuba shops that don't have a pool or stuff like that, where you can just really get in the water and test all of them out. But it all comes down to fit. How well does it fit on your foot? Is it comfortable to wear? And usually, a lot of the scuba shops should know this, is the fin neutrally buoyant? Is it positively buoyant, or is it negatively buoyant? And if you're somebody that hasn't even gone scuba diving yet, you probably don't know what all that means. So you should probably just go with a neutrally buoyant fin. That means it's just going to stay right where it needs to. It's not going to sink or float. It's just going to be right there. Perfect all the time. A lot of people that are generally more buoyant than other people, you go for a negatively buoyant fin, because fins do have a huge effect on how your buoyancy and your trim works underwater. Even just a slight change can completely change how you're doing your dive. But when you're looking for a good fin, if you look in the neutrally buoyant, if you haven't been scuba diving yet and you don't know what you want, you should really find one that's comfortable for you. And find something that will be, you feel won't be too much of a bulky mess on your feet when you're swimming. After getting through your training, you realize, hey, I'm gonna be diving quite a bit. And quite a bit can mean a lot of things. It could be every single day, it could be once a month. And to me, diving once a month on like 2-3 dives once a month is pretty often. And I would say that getting your own gear has its huge benefits. And when I mean gear, I mean regulators, BCDs, and stuff like that. Wetsuits and all of that. It really brings a simplicity and comfort knowing that your gear is good. Your gear has been serviced. You know how that gear works on your body. You know how well it breathes. It just adds to the level of comfortability in the water. And I have a couple regulators here, and I have a few pressure gauges and different things that I would like to look at, because price is a big factor when it comes to regulators. They are so expensive, and it's just a terrible experience buying them, because you don't know if you have much money, but you should not be spending your money on it if you do not have it. And do not spend your money on any of it if you don't think you are going to be diving as often as I am. So the first set of regulators I have here is the Oceanic Alpha. Now, I have the Oceanic Alpha with a yoke, first stage, and a second stage. The great benefit about these regulators is that this came pretty cheap. And again, cheap in scuba diving regulator terms and not normal people terms. people may look at these and think, oh, it's all plastic, it must be ass. It's not. This thing is great. This thing breathes amazing. It has a dial here to change the sensitivity. It works really, really well. This thing can be beat up and it is gonna work. It just has not performed bad for me yet. And this thing is really, really good for anybody that's looking for a budget regulator, but not dropping $2,000 on one. The Octo that I have paired with this regulator is called the Slimline. Yeah, the Slimline. And people knock on me a lot about this one, and I get why, especially through like trainings and blah, 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 blah. However, this thing has not done me wrong yet. It's super, its profile is super small compared to this sitting up against your body. I would rather have this sitting up against my body that I'm not using this. I'm not using this every day, but in an emergency, this thing will come in handy. It sits just like this, so you have your purge button at the top, but it works really, really well when I need it. And I have not had a bad experience, and it's super comfortable. It almost disappears, but you still know where it is. Kind of upgrading from those, I did just pick up a couple of new regulators and an Octo. And this I think is a huge upgrade, especially for someone that's going to be in pretty rough waters and stuff like that, is the Sherwood SR2s. This thing is bulletproof, and it is so much smaller than my Oceanic Alpha. I'm breathing through this thing, it breathes super easy. It also comes with the sensitivity dial. It does it all, and it sits really nice in the mouth. It is just super small and compact, and it just works on a lot of levels. And it's metal, you can feel the heft to it, and a lot of people like that and a lot of people don't. But when you're underwater, it almost doesn't matter because you can feel the differences. This thing has a lot of metal pieces in it. It's almost indestructible, this thing. Now, the first stage, what I came in surprise to, both of these regulators, even this one and the Oceanic Alpha, they are both environmentally sealed, which means they're able to go in colder water. It's higher protection against the elements. Also, I'm going to say this now, I'm not a big fan of yoke style. That's like a US thing apparently, and you should really be using DIN. And the rest of the world uses DIN, and DIN it screws right into the tank, but DIN I think is all around a better one, so I might be trying to switch these out to DIN regulators instead of yoke. However, yoke is perfectly fine, but if you feel like you're going to be in tight places, or you're going to be banging up against stuff, you're in rocks or whatever, blah, 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 use DIN. It's a better connection. It's not going to fall off, and you won't have that fear. What's super cool about this also is that it swivels, where my Oceanic one doesn't do that. But the Octo for this regulator is the same thing. It's nothing different. It's just a different color, and it's just a little bit cheaper, but not cheaper in the quality of materials. It's an Octo. It's a second it's a second one of these. These things are the same thing. It doesn't matter. The controls for it are the same thing. They breathe the same. I couldn't even tell the difference whenever I had my eyes closed. It doesn't matter. This set of regulators is probably one of the best I've ever breathed out of ever. Super, super great. And I don't remember how much these were. I bought these at a discount from a buddy of mine who's a dealer for Sherwood, and I bought this set plus a computer for about $600, but that's not the real price. I believe they're in the more 800 to 900 range, I believe, for the whole set, but I'm not saying like go buy these, but these definitely are something to look at if you can find them. I know Sherwood's a big proprietor in the UK, and it's not a big thing down here in the US, but if you find a dealer around you that has Sherwood, I would say go with Sherwood. Very highly rated. Love them. Then going back to the Oceanic. Oceanic's a huge brand. Love them. I think I really hold a lot with these regulators because I put these things through all of my training with quite a bit of dust and dirt, and it sucked. But I don't think these are any worse than anything else. I don't think getting plastic regulators and plastic feeling light regulators is a bad thing because they fit so well in your mouth and they feel super light and you can't tell they're there, and it just feels like you're breathing naturally. And why wouldn't you want that? It just adds to that level of comfortability. The great thing about Oceanic also, that when you buy this regulator, they give you, it has a 2-year service date. So that means you won't have to service these every year. You should be servicing them every year, but you don't have to. And also the great thing is that if you register your stuff, you get free repairs, free everything, and all you have to pay for is labor, which is probably around $40. I don't know. I haven't serviced these yet. I got these a couple of years ago. The next thing going into that is with your system, you have a couple of different options. Let's say, okay, cool, I have the money to spend and blah, 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 whatever. I have all the money in the world, blah, 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 blah. I don't know, I can't talk. Anyways, you have the money. You buy a computer, wrist-mounted, by the way. You buy a wrist-mounted computer, and I run a Garmin G1, I think that's what it's called, and that thing has been super reliable. It connects right to your phone right after you get out of the water, and uploads all your data of what you did. And if I had it, I'd show it right now, but I don't. But having a wrist-mounted regulator is, or not regulator, it is a computer. The computer is great. I think Garmin has really held their own, especially they're coming into the diving world a little bit. They've always been a part of like the marine and doing fish finders and blah, 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 and chart plotting and blah, 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 and doing all that stuff. And I think Garmin really held their own, and now they're one of the highest rated diving computers in the world, and they really do prove it. Everything connects to your phone. You can see how much calories you burned. You see what all you did. You can see your stress level through the water. You can see how much you were breathing. And if you get an upgrade from what I have, you can also get the Descent Mark II, I believe it's now on. And you can get a transmitter that screws right into your regulators, and it gives you real-time data of your pressure, your gas consumption, and all of that through the watch. It's probably amazing, but I don't rely on that stuff. I really just like the regular smaller version, and it keeps me going, and I can't complain about it. And I intend to use it for a very long time, and it hasn't failed on me yet. However, if you're a person that doesn't want to drop $500 on a watch, and I understand it, it's fine. You can get the next thing. I'm gonna go and grab that. What I have here is a regulator mounted computer. So it screws directly into your regulators through this port right here, right into this. This is a whole computer. It tells you how much gas you have left. It uses all of this stuff, and it blah, 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 blah. It tells you what your dive time is. It tells you everything a dive computer is going to tell you. It also comes with a nice little compass too, and which you should have. You should always have a compass on you because you might need to get back to land. But this is a Wisdom 3. I have not tested this out yet. I don't know how well it works, but I've heard good reviews about it. So don't take my word for it. But once I do test this out, I'll do a full comprehensive review on this one. However, it seems to I've used one of these computers before, but they're not my favorite because I don't like how big and bulky it is. But for somebody that's going to be not in the water as much, but has their own gear, this is a perfect one for you, especially if you don't want to drop $500 on a dive computer. Also, the great thing about Garmin dive computers is that you can also use it as a smartwatch, so you can track your fitness, your health, and all that stuff, and it all goes into your watch. So you're not just paying for a dive computer, you're also paying for a regular daily watch you can wear around. The thing let's say you got your fancy watch. Cool, good for you, you did it. You should still have some things that tell you what you need to know. I have it because I like it a lot, and sometimes I don't want to rely on my watch to see my depth gauge and stuff like that. So I have one of these. I have a analog pressure gauge and depth gauge. People don't like the depth gauge as much, and I understand why. This thing is adding a little bit more bulk to your equipment, and I get that, but I sure do like this thing, because what if my computer fails? I have a backup. I need to know how deep I am, and if I need to ascend, I need to know how fast I'm ascending. I would always have an analog depth gauge, always, because a computer's not always going to be correct. It's not. And having this analog thing is almost perfect every single time, and it tells you right there. And I mean, look at those letters. They're big and bold, and they're just showing you everything. And the great thing about this is that it also glows in the dark. So if you're in a low light area, you just flash your flashlight on it and you can see it. This is a Ziegel. I don't remember the model. I don't know what the model name is, and it doesn't really tell me either, but it's a Ziegel pressure and depth gauge combo. And this thing, I mean, just putting it in your hand, this thing's built, and it's sealed. It is sealed. This thing is built like crazy, and it hasn't failed on me. It hasn't done anything wrong. It's told me the precise places that I'm at. It really does pretty well in the water, and I have no complaints about this pressure gauge. Now, let's say you don't want a depth gauge. It's going to add a little bit too much bulk, and you don't like that, and I get that. But so you go and just get a regular pressure gauge. Make sure it is a diving pressure gauge and not one made for outdoor open air use. You get one that is, for sure, or get one from a dive shop that knows for sure that this is a diving pressure gauge. Otherwise, it will crack under pressure in the water, and it won't perform the way you want it to. I don't have one of those with me because I use the ones for my school, but they work very well too. And most of them tend to glow in the dark also, but if you're going to get it, buy an analog pressure gauge. You want it, and you need it, or you don't need it, but you want it. I'm going to tell you want it, and you don't get to argue with me about it. Moving on from there, and going back to Max and things they tell you, one thing, and this is going to be my biggest pet peeve, but this is the thing that made me want to make this whole video, is because I get annoyed with a lot of instructors. I'm no better than an instructor. I never will claim to be better than an instructor telling you what's best. You should be telling yourself what's best for you, but there are some suggestions that the instructors make that make a lot of sense, but I'm going to completely disregard what they say and just hear me out on this. So here it is. To defog your mask, you don't want to be looking through a clouded. You don't want to be taking off your mask all the time. I get it, and it sucks. Getting fog in your mask is one of the most annoying things in all of scuba diving, and I will stand by that for the rest of my life. However, and there are methods, there are two pretty popular methods to get to defog your mask so it doesn't fog up, blah, and stuff like that. And the two methods are spit in it. I don't like that. It sounds annoying, and it washes right out after if I'm going through training. It sucks. And then there's I think it's baby lotion or baby soap. I don't know. It's one of the ones, it's like that Johnson & Johnson stuff that doesn't burn your eyes or whatever. They mix that with some water and you spray it in there, you let it dry, and then you rinse it, and then you spray it again, and you do whatever to it. That stuff also washes out really, really quickly, and if you're going through training, it sucks because after the third or fifth time that your instructor tells you to take your mask off or fill it up with water, and you're going to have to clear your mask again, you get pretty annoyed and your mask fogs up, and then you're at 30 feet, so you can't just pop up to the water and get some more in it. It just sucks. So, get mask defog. They tell you it's a waste of money. It could be. I don't know. I have not known yet. All of my buddies that I have used, I have through 2 or 3 other people that also use this stuff with me, and they use my bottle. And I have a bottle about this big, and it works. It works perfectly. Even if I'm taking my mask off 3 times. If I take off my mask 3 times and pop it back on my head, my mask is still not going to fog up. It works perfectly, and you don't have to use a lot. I mean, they say use about a dime. I've used like a quarter of that and put it in my mask, and it works perfectly. You put it in, you set it out, let it dry up, and then you dunk it in water a little bit, and then you put it on. It stays there, and it doesn't gum up your mask. It doesn't do anything like that. It just works so well. And I have no complaints about it. All the instructors will tell you it's a waste of money, don't buy it. I don't think it is. I think it's worth it 100%. And I've been through so many classes with so many instructors, taking off my mask so many freaking times, and I've only gone through half a bottle. And I use that stuff religiously. And so do 3 other friends that I have use this stuff religiously. And we've only gone through half a bottle in almost 2 years now. I think it's worth it. The next thing I have that I think is a waste of money, mask scrub. This stuff sucks. I haven't used this bottle since I first got my mask. Wash your mask with water. Just wash it with water if you get stuff in it, but don't use mask scrub. It sucks. You use it initially whenever you're getting a new mask to get the film and the production film off of it. It's like only good for that one time, but I say just use some toothpaste, not the toothpaste with the little gel inside and the stuff. I'm talking about just the fluoride toothpaste that comes out white in the tube. Put that in there and you scrub it until it gets all gummed up. You wash it out and you do it again. You're gonna sit there and twiddle your thumbs for 2 hours doing this stuff, but it will make your mask clean as hell. And I say just do that instead of getting the mask scrub. That was a waste of money that I've never touched. And people say, oh, I found this second bottle somewhere in my house, but of mask defog, I found it somewhere in my house. And yeah, I haven't touched it in 2-3 years. However, I haven't gone through my first bottle yet enough to need to get into that one. But now I have an extra bottle of it, and yeah, maybe I wasted my money on it. But I'm still going to defend mask defog to the day I die, and I will always defend it. Mask scrub, not so much. I hate it. It's stupid. That's pretty much all I have for today. And again, it really comes down to what you feel is going to be the best for you. Listen to yourself. What do you need to do? If you have the money to spend it on gear for scuba diving, then go ahead and do it. It's fine. Just make sure you're using it properly. You're taking care of your own gear, because your gear will last you a lifetime if you take care of it. If you're only going on a dive trip once a year, don't spend your money on it. If you're going every month, then yeah, I mean, you can do it. If you're going twice a year, but don't listen to me. Spend your money how you want to. I don't really care. Just don't go out and be stupid and buy the most expensive gear and then never dive again, because then you got to waste of that, and now you have to sell it used, which you have to mark it off for market price. Blah 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 blah. It sucks. Don't go out and buy the most expensive gear. Find yourself on a budget if you're just going to be doing this or even if once a month, you might want to upgrade your gear a little bit and maybe get some of those Sherwood SR2s. But if you're diving, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a year, pick up some Oceanics and some plastic regulators. It's going to be fine. It's going to work great. I have no complaints about it. Do it. I don't care. It's your money. But don't go out and buy the most expensive gear unless you're going to be diving every day. Otherwise, if you're diving every day, you're working for a company and that company is going to pay for it for you. So then that's when you go and buy your most expensive gear. But that's about it. And I just wanted to express some of that, because not to say that instructors annoy me. I think they're great for what they do and they teach you a lot of things. But I think the misconception of understanding where, coming from especially my situation where I'm diving a couple times a month, where I don't know where I land, and maybe a few of you don't know where you land, where you're going, and doing this a lot more than a normal person, but not enough to warrant getting commercial dive gear. You kind of stuck in the middle here, and that's fine. Just don't go wasting your money. All right, I'll see y'all later.